Hello everyone, today we're going to be going through chapters 30 through 36 of Genesis, continuing our study from Genesis to Revelation chronologically. So the Bible we're using has the books of the Bible ordered in such a way as they show up in history, and you will need the Bible to follow along, so I encourage you to email me and I'll send you a copy of the Bible so you can go through your own personal study of the Chronological Study Bible. Email me your address, and the email address is becauseloveneverfails@gmail.com. And again, this is a survey. We're going through 10 pages a day. So in way of review, looking back at chapter 29, when we left off in 29, we were in the area of Hebron here, and Jacob had deceived his father Isaac by saying that he was Esau and stole his brother's blessings, and Esau is angry with him, Esau being his twin brother, and is threatening to kill him. So Jacob flees, heads north back to the land of Haran, where his grandfather Abraham had come out of. And when he gets there, he bumps into Laban. Laban was his cousin. So in the land of Haran, where there was Abraham and his brother Nahor, so out of Abraham comes Jacob, out of Nahor comes Laban, so that would have made them cousins. So here in the region with Laban, he falls in love with Rachel, wants to marry Rachel, and the agreement that he has with Laban is that he serves Laban 7 years to get the right to marry Rachel. Laban deceives him, he marries Leah instead, so Jacob has to serve an additional 7 years to marry Rachel. So 14 years, 2 wives now, Leah and Rachel, and at the end of 29 also, there were some children that Jacob had with Leah. There were 4 sons out of their union, and Rachel was barren. And so when we move into chapter 30, Rachel being barren, she gives her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob, and out of that union come 2 sons. Then Leah becomes barren, can't have children, so she gives her maidservant Zilpah. There are 2 sons out of that union. And then Leah, again, her womb opens up, she can have kids again, and out of her union with Jacob come 2 sons and a daughter, Dinah. And then it says in the middle of chapter 30 here in verse 22, God remembers Rachel, and God listens to her and opened her womb. So Rachel has a son, Joseph. So here's Jacob with 11 sons and 1 daughter, and he approaches Laban because he wants to now separate and basically have his start his own life and get back to the land of Canaan. But before we talk about that, I just want to point out this, because it's a little different for us with maidservants having kids and being given by their wives and things like that. During this time period, part of the marriage contract was that a wife was contractually obligated to provide children for her husband. So if she couldn't have kids, then what she would do is she would have a maidservant, and then through the maidservant provide those kids, and the kids of those maidservants would be considered hers. So now her and her husband could have the kiddos per this marriage contract. So that's part of what we're seeing here. Okay, so with 11 sons and daughters, Jacob approaches Laban, says, hey, I want to get out of here. Laban, not LeBron. Laban wants him to stay, and of course he does, right? Because during this time period, these 14 years, Laban has been blessed, and he acknowledges that, notices that God is blessing Jacob, and as a consequence, Laban is also being blessed. Jacob says, no, I'm not going to stay. Laban's in this interaction, hey, what can I give you? What can there be? And what they agree to is that Jacob's going to spend a little, more time here, so that they can separate out their flocks and kind of grow up their flocks of sheep and goats, and then they'll separate. Well, so Jacob says, "Hey, I'll take all the speckled and spotted goats," and before they start it, Laban says, "Okay, that's good. We can do that." And right, so he gives Jacob this opportunity to grow up the flocks, but takes away all the speckled and spotted goats and gives them away to his own son. So here's Jacob left with non-speckled and spotted goats, which would make them all Laban's, and starts breeding this flock and starts peeling bark off of, it says, bark off of poplar, almond, and chestnut trees, placing them in the water, and then as the flocks are drinking from this water, guess what? They start having speckled and spotted goats, right? So it appears that, Jacob's doing it, he's putting it in the water, and now, through his husbandry and breeding, that this is taking place. And also, they're strong, so now all of a sudden, once again, the flocks, are becoming Jacob's. They're spotted and speckled, and strong. But then in chapter 31, because of this, Laban's noticing it once again, like, what's going on here, right? And so Jacob sees that the Laban's countenance is not favorable. And also the Lord tells him, return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you. So Jacob calls his family conference. He says, Leah, Rachel, here's the scoop. Your father's countenance is not favorable toward me, but the God of my father has been with me. And he also acknowledges, with Rachel and Leah, look, I had this dream, and God's showing me, what he's doing. God's showing me that it's because of him that these speckled and spotted goats and sheep are being had. So which is kind of cool, right? Because just in the chapter before, it appears that it's what he's doing, but then he's acknowledging in this family conference that, hey, no, it's really God. But what it shows is again, just this really cool interaction between God and man of yes, there's things for us to do, but really the favor and the blessing and what's really going on comes from God. So Rachel and Leah say, hey, great, you know what? You're telling us we know how our fathers treated you. God has told you, to go back to the land of Canaan. So let's go. So they all agree, and right before they leave, Rachel steals one of the household gods of her father Laban, and we're gonna talk about that in a moment. So they leave. They're out of Dodge. They're now heading south, and with them heading south, Laban is actually in pursuit of them. And so Jacob and his family make it to Gilead, and this is where Laban catches up with them here in Gilead. And when Laban meets up with him, he's really creating this persona of, man, if you had told me, that you were leaving, we would have had a big party. There would have been, he says, there would have been songs and timbrels and harps. But what you're doing is foolish. You took off. You didn't even give me a chance to say bye to my family. To throw you a party. And then he goes on, and then he's also, is worried about this household god that was stolen. Is like, why did you do that? But fortunately, along the way, when Laban was in pursuit of Jacob, God had given Laban a dream that basically told him, hey, hands off. Do neither good nor bad to Jacob. And so Laban's telling Jacob this. But then also, with the stealing of the household god, he brings this to task. And Jacob tells him, look, I've stolen nothing from you. You can look through everyone that I have with me, and if you find the person who stole your household god, they're yours. You can take their life. Of course, he didn't know that Rachel had done this. So Laban goes through searching everybody out. When he gets into Rachel's tent, Rachel had taken the household god and had put it under the saddle of a camel that she was sitting on. And so, she's having this interaction with her dad, Laban, and just says, hey, pardon me, it's that time of month. I'm menstruating, and I'm sitting here taking care of business. And so Laban leaves, and so, of course, he has nothing to show for it. And now Jacob really lets him have it. Like, look, man, I served you 20 years. You prospered because of me. You messed with my wages. You made it hard on me. We're done. Let's truly separate. But before they do, Laban wants to covenant with Jacob, which they do. They have this covenant. There's this pillar set up. Laban says, hey, with this is our boundary. You don't come into my area, and I'm not going to come into yours. And what's interesting here is a couple of things. One, why was he so eager to set up? I mean, he's the one who's in pursuit of Jacob, right? Why is he so eager to set up this covenant and this boundary with Jacob? And why was Rachel so eager to steal this household god? And there's kind of a keyhole here. During this time period, the possessor of the household god in these household gods, the person in possession could claim the first rights to the family holdings. Rachel knew that, which is probably why she stole it, and Laban, of course, knew that, which is why he wanted to set up this boundary. So that kind of shares light on the mystery of this, this household god. So they have this covenant, and then chapter 32, Esau's back on the map, right? So here they are, Jacob and his family in Gilead. He sorts out everything with Laban. I imagine Laban headed back north. And now here's Jacob still in a rock and a hard place. He just finished his business with Laban. Come to find out of Edom, Esau's heading north towards Jacob with 400 men. And Jacob's thinking, man, my brother's coming to kill me. So what he does is he separates out all of his belongings in different groups and has them go towards Esau and with gifts. And so his goal is to appease Esau as he goes, as Esau's coming north, these groups of Jacob are going south for Esau to be getting gifts all along the way. So in hope of, hey, when we finally meet up, I will have appeased his anger. Also in 32, Jacob wrestles with God. Really read this part, and there's really a richness to this, because here's Jacob wrestling with an angel, and in this wrestling match, it's like just Jacob's like, man, I'm not going to let go of you till you bless me. I'm not going to let go of you till you bless me. So he wrestles all night with this angel, and angel of the Lord, and finally the angel touches his hip socket, throws him out of joint. And he's still hanging on to the angel. He's just waiting for this blessing. And the angel says, what is your name? And he answers, Jacob. So what this really represents is, if we look back when Jacob, really deceived his father Isaac to get the blessing, when his father says, hey, what's your name? He says, I'm Esau. So here we are. So an angel of the Lord God is asking him, what's your name? And he says, I'm Jacob, right? So it's Jacob really moving into this role of, and then the angel says, well, now we're changing your name to Israel. So it's becoming that man of God and becoming who he is. So anyway, a lot could be said there. I encourage you to read it for yourself. So in chapter 33, Jacob and Esau meet, and so when they meet, it's good stuff. Esau runs to meet him, embraces him, falls on his neck and kisses him, and they weep together. And he lifts his eyes and he sees the women and children. And he's like, who are these with you? Right? I mean, here are these twin brothers, and it's this moment of, man, look at what, look at your family, look at all this. Who are these people? So he ends up accepting the gifts of Jacob. They do part ways after this. So after they meet up in this just south of Gilead in this Penuel area, Jacob continues back down to the land of Canaan. It appears that Esau heads back south towards Edom. And in chapter 34, the sister Danae is raped by a Hivite, and as such, there's revenge taken. You can read that in chapter 34, and then in chapter 35, Jacob returns to Bethel. And again, God appears to Jacob, and reaffirming this blessing to him. And it's the same promise, that he was given 20 years before. He's given the same promise again 20 years later. Hey, your name is Jacob. You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. I am the God Almighty. Be fruitful, multiply. Again, speaking to the descendants. Rachel dies in this chapter. And as we know from studying previously, she was buried in the cave of Machpelah. And then, talks about Jacob's 12 sons. Isaac dies in Hebron, and again would have been buried in the cave of Machpelah. And then in chapter 36, it goes through the lineage of Esau, who was ultimately the father of the Edomites. So read along. I hope your studies are going well. Let's continue this together. God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.